Everybody, welcome to On the Glide Slope. I got asked if I could do a quick side-by-side or kind of back-to-back video of how things are working for me in prepared versus X-Plane. So I'm happy to do that. What I'm going to do is I've got as much of a kind of a peer-to-peer comparison as I think I can manage. In prepared, I have the ORBX scenery for the Northern Rockies, which includes Bonners Ferry, and it has an updated airport for Bonners Ferry, although not the one that ORBX sells particularly, which is another $40 or something like that. And in X-Plane, I burned a photorealistic tile for that strip and built my own scenery, both of which are free, although building my own scenery took a couple hours to do. And I'm going to fly a lap of the pattern in both. So I'm going to boot up prepared, go to Bonners Ferry, fly a lap of the pattern, and then do the same thing in X-Plane. And we'll just sort of show my boot up and routine through the whole thing, and just for whatever it's worth, we'll see how that goes. The only thing of note is that simulators being simulators, you're never quite sure what's going to happen, so hopefully this will go smoothly. But we'll figure it out. So if I'm booting, and I'm not going to run with weather because right now it's raining in Bonners Ferry, the weather's terrible, so we're just going to go with clear skies. Otherwise, I'd normally run Active Sky 16 in prepared, and I'd run X Enviro in X-Plane. So first thing, let's overclock our GPU here just a little bit. And then I'll boot SPAD next, which runs my gauges, remote flight, which runs the 6-packs on the iPad, and the G-Step control program, which runs the avionics, and then prepared. I'll start my timer here just to get a sense of how long this takes. Now, this isn't normally what would happen if I was going to a different strip in prepared. If I were to just load up at Bonners Ferry in the 172, and I'm going to use the A2A 172 here and the default X-Plane 172 and X-Plane 11. But if I were to boot up to get my screens correct, if I were just to load into a new airport, I'd have to open 3 windows and then tell them to use the custom screen configurations that I've got. Sometimes that's faster, sometimes it's not as fast as just loading up at a prior scenario that already had the screens all configured and then just moving the airplane to the airport. Just to save time here, I loaded up Bonners Ferry a while ago, and we'll just load up there like it's a safe scenario. But it is a bit easier in X-Plane to just boot up in any airport because it maintains the 3-screen configuration all the time, no matter what I'm doing, for what that's worth. Super Bowl Sunday here today in the States, for those who like football. I also will be booting into prepared with the motor running. I've saved the scenario like that. I had a difficult time configuring the magneto switch and the desktop aviator switch panel without going to further lengths than I wanted to go. So I've just saved it with things running. And in terms of the graphics settings, I'm going to run with what I run as sort of my best graphic settings in both. And that's what we'll do. So load 65S. Now, while this is loading, it's interesting to note that the first time I booted it up, the elevations for the airport were wrong. So I ran the airport elevation configurator in FTX Central, and that still didn't fix it. So then I did a bunch of searching and found an answer on the web and found some folder in the ORBX scenery folder set where there were a bunch of airport elevation change files, and I moved those into the general scenery library, and it seemed to have fixed it. It's one of the things I have found that I don't do anymore with X-Plane is deal with those kinds of things. It's just, it just doesn't seem to be that hard to make things happen. And I don't have to add so many different add-ons and things to get it to look the way I want as I did in prepared. Okay, so here we are. All right, so we're at Bonners Ferry. That took about 2 minutes. Let's get everything running here. I don't think I set remote flight server to start. And let's get this running. It's running, good. So I should be able to turn on my avionics. Yep. Yep. Good. Turn on our beacon. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what the weather is, so we'll just guess and go off 27, which is right here around the corner, if we are where I think I am, and it looks like we are. Okay. There might be a windsock over here that I can see. Yeah, okay, good. I love the AccuFeel sounds. And scenery looks pretty good. Get our trim set. Take off. Coming to 20 here. We're not going to mess with run-ups and everything. Okay, we are at 2,300 feet. Just remembering that for our pattern altitude. Controls are working. So we'll go up to about 2,100 feet and then make left traffic. Okay. Airspeed's alive. Very easy to steer the A2A 172 with your feet. Okay, 65 knots. And we're off. The trees, these are the HD trees from ORBX. They look great. It doesn't look like I'm running with shadows on. And if I were to look at my frame rates, I have it probably locked to 30 because my monitors are set to 30. And I'm running 30 without any problem. I'm at max terrain, or max autogen, max vegetation, and of course no clouds. All right, 3,100 feet. Just level out for a little second here. So you can see the ORBX terrain. Make our turn. I think I said 20 was the airport heading, right? All right, there we are, 2,300 feet. And oh, there's the strip. The 172 A2A feels a little stiff to me in terms of its performance. Okay, we'll turn downwind. But the HD trees are great. ORBX trees have the default trees in X-Plane beat by a long shot. We're running Vector here, ORBX, so that'll be the equivalent of the HD mesh that we're running with X-Plane. I've climbed far above pattern altitude here. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing because I'm talking. And it doesn't look like I have shadows turned on. Terrain shadows. I think I have them turned on in X-Plane, but it doesn't look like I have them on here. I don't see the trees casting any shadows. Okay, so we're coming up on the strip. The vector and the mapping of where individual trees and tree patterns are is very good. in ORBX. I went in with my own scenery when I designed this airport, and I added some to it to make it a little more real. Okay, here we are, we're coming up to the numbers. The throttle, start flying the airplane downhill, carb heat on, fuel pump on, first notch flaps. Sluggish, I would say that this airplane feels sluggish. I've got the controls set to be pretty sensitive for how I fly them, but so it goes. We're right at 90 knots. My recollection is that the airspeed performance in the A2A 172 is really spot on, but it doesn't feel like it flies as lively. As it does in X-Plane, but we'll see if I still think that in a minute. Okay, where's our airport? Okay, we're coming up. A little terrain here on the right to avoid. Nice mountains, nice view up the valley there. Okay, next notch flaps. Okay, now we can start our turn on to final. Doing about 70 knots here, which is about where we want to be. There we go, right on the glide slope. Looks like we have some trees in the way of the airport here. We'll try not to run into those. Full flaps. Great scenery, great textures. The default X-Plane textures are quite good, but not nearly as good as what ORBX's custom scenery packages are. Of course, I think the default X-Plane textures are better than the standard prepared textures. Alright, I think we have this airport made. We'll dead stick this one. Now if I remember, the A2A 172 loves to float. On final. Yep. Much more than the real thing did when I flew the 172 in my training. Right about here, usually it'll just hang. Yep. There we go. I don't think it was quite that rough, but okay. Okay, so there is a lap of the pattern in prepared. A little differential braking here. And this is with the ORBX, I think it's Rocky, Northern Rocky package. There we go. Okay, so we'll get off here and we will stop. I'll get things configured for where I'm going to want them to be when we boot X-Plane. And we will go to X-Plane. Alright, that was fun. That was 10 minutes around, something like that. Okay, now we will exit, and these things usually crash for some reason when I get out of X-Plane. So we'll wait for that to happen, as it surely is. Okay, so now we'll do our routine for X-Plane. I boot remote flight, I boot SPAD, and I boot X-Plane's avionics suite, and I run X-Plane. Start the clock. Classic that for some reason now my firewall just seems to be decided to block things. I love Windows. It's great. I'm still running beta 8 here. I haven't loaded beta 9. Doesn't sound like it's much help for my NVIDIA card. So, okay, we'll just go new flight, and we'll tell it 65S, Bonners Ferry. Customize. We'll go right at the same ramp. Confirm. Time of day. I think I had that set to 9 in the morning or earlier for the other flight. Ignore that joystick calibration. SPAD is configuring my gauges for this airplane. And again, I burned a tile in Ortho 4XP of photorealistic scenery for this yesterday. It took me about 20 minutes, I guess, to download, maybe 30 minutes to download and burn it. Just sort of picked the tile, set the settings, and walked away, and came back 20 minutes later and had photorealistic scenery. And what's great about X-Plane is it will put the roads, the cars, the buildings, the trees, everything else on top of that. So, right, most of the time, if not all the time, in prepared, if you're flying with photorealistic scenery, it's flat, meaning there's no autogen on top of it, which doesn't really look realistic. X-Plane doesn't do that. The avionics are still on because of the crashing of that program, but that's okay. There's a utility that comes with these from Flight Illusion. Oh yeah, hold on. I was taking screen caps. I was taking screen caps earlier, and so my side window is still set to the wrong side window. So let me just fix this real quick. I want it to be negative 90 degrees. Oh, hold on. I want it to be 57 degrees field of view, if I remember correctly, and my visual offsets are negative 90. Those of you who are wondering how the monitor setups work, now here's a chance for you to see that. And let's see, and then I go 90 and then minus 6.5. Little inside baseball for you guys here. I didn't make sure that my GoPro was perfectly calibrated for this. It has it snowing here in Bonners Ferry today. We will fix that in a second. Okay, unpause this. Step on the brakes. And let's turn off the weather. Let me get that set also. Go clear skies. Okay, you can see how quickly weather changes happen in this, pretty quick. And if I want to generate and see what our frame rate R is, we can do that right there. It usually runs about, it's running 26, which is pretty good. Okay, so airplane's running. Avionics are running. I need to start up. Whoops. Excuse me, guys. Start the remote flight server. So my startups in X-Plane are usually a bit smoother than that. I just was, had forgotten the last time I was in here I was taking screen caps, so I had my window config set different than it would normally be set. Okay, so here we go. Just so we can see the scenery, I designed this scenery myself. Little shadow artifact there, probably from this being a beta. And comparable, I think, to the ORBX stuff, if not better, because this is actually spot on. Again, ORBX sells this airport. You can buy it for a fee, or you can go to xplane.org and download this one for free. Okay, so I'm running about 26, 27 frames a second. I don't remember if I have shadows on or not. It looks like I do have shadows on. in terms of the trees. So I'm getting a higher frame rate than I would certainly if I turned the shadows on in prepared. Okay, runway 20. Get our trim set. Oh yeah, in this beta the trim tab's not working, or the trim SideTech trim wheel isn't working. I'm sure it'll get it fixed. Okay. Been many complaints about steering the GA airplanes with rudders on the ground. They're weather vaning. I think in beta 8 it's much improved. Airspeed's alive. Okay, there we go. And yes, we have shadows, full tree shadows going on here. We're still running 28 frames a second. Okay, first thing, feels much more lively to me. This airplane, I've got the settings set to be pretty sensitive, but it is quite easy to fly. Looks like we have a little haze here. One thing we can do is we can go into X-Enviro and turn on the weather, but then make it so it's clear and clear overhead, and it will make it so there's no haze, rather than me going in and fixing the haze. It'll probably try to make it snow here for a second, but then we'll fix that. Okay, 3,100 feet, we'll make our left-hand turn. I think I did a little dip here. Yeah, there's our snow. That's funny. Okay, clear overhead. It'll clear that up in just a second. There we go. There we go. Seems like it's building a haze layer as well. I'm not quite sure why. Make our turn. You can see the autogen down here, much more accurate in terms of the placement of that autogen than we had in prepared. The HD mesh is really very good. I'm too busy looking around. Go back to just clear skies. There we go. Now if we wanted to shift the time here, oh, I've got it set to a particular time, do I? Nope. I can make it earlier or later. Just like that. X-Plane or prepared would probably reload if I did that. Alright, we're way up here at 4,000 feet. Let's turn. This is zone level 17 scenery. And this airplane flies much more realistically to me. The flight models, I think, in X-Plane are better. I think they're just better. And things feel more lively. They feel more like real airplanes. We're down to about 20 frames a second right now, but still very smooth. Looks and feels to me really almost as smooth, or every bit as smooth as it was up at 27 or 30. Okay, setting up here to enter on the downwind leg. Start to lose some altitude. Same hill here that we had in prepared. I keep trying to use the trim wheel and then I remember it's not working. There's the airstrip. Okay, we're at the numbers. I would imagine that playing with that weather also increased my frame rate some. Carb heat on, fuel pump on. Uh-oh. Not quite sure what I just did. Okay, we just had an engine out. Trim for 73 knots, which is our best glide speed. try something again. Undo what we just did. Fuel pump, carb heat. Nope. Okay. 73 is our best glide. Let's see if we can make the strip. These trees up here may have other ideas. Come on, baby. Nope. This is exciting. Carb heat. Well, I hit the carb heat and it went, so that might have been the problem. Okay, fuel pump off. Fuel cutoff valve off. We would announce that we're making an engine out procedure landing. We don't need to squawk emergency because we're right here. I didn't plan this, by the way. 73, we're still right on best glide. We're a little high. It's okay. We can slip the airplane. We can go some flaps because we got it made. That's why you fly tight patterns, so you're right by the airport in case you need it. Okay, well that was exciting. I didn't mean for that to happen. Let's see if I can keep enough speed to get us off the runway so we don't block it. All right. Well, if that ever happens in the real world, I hope it goes as well as that just did. So as we come to a stop, presumably that was a carb heat problem. This is the carb heat switch, and maybe I had it off and I flipped it on. I don't know what happened, but nonetheless, here we are. I don't think I ran out of gas. No, plenty of gas. Curious. Curious. Okay, well, so there's a quick and more eventful lap of the pattern in Prepared, or in X-Plane, X-Plane 11. And hope you found it interesting. And my view is the airplane flies much more, at least feels much more realistic to me. And even the A2A, which is such a great, great model. You know, this thing feels much more real. Like even there, that gliding, I mean, that felt real to me. I don't have 1,000,000 hours, but, you know, I've got at least, what, 29, 30 hours now. So I've got 30 flights under my belt, and I've got a sense for how a civil aviation airplane like this feels. And this just feels more realistic to me. Your mileage may vary. Not to say the A2A isn't fantastic. Absolutely, if I'm flying Prepared, that's the airplane I want. I would take the photorealistic scenery over the ORBX scenery any day of the week, especially with all the autogen on top of it. Of course, the photorealistic scenery I made myself in a very simple process, and it was free. And if you load into this airport, just default for X-Plane, it may not even have buildings. I don't know if it does in default Prepared. But with the Pacific, or with the Northern Rocky Mountains from ORBX, it has a more built-out airport there. So I thought it was only fair to say, well, if I were to do that, I'd probably go on to xplane.org and find a field for Bonners Ferry. And there's this one, which I just happen to have done myself, and use it. So apples to oranges, there you are. I'm not going to make any judgments for you. You decide for yourself. But that was my experience. Funny that we had the engine out. I think I did everything right. I got the magnetos off. I turned off the batteries. I hit the cutoff. I think I followed the procedure pretty close. So there you go. A back-to-back set of laps of the pattern at Bonners Ferry and Prepared with ORBX, and in X-Plane 11 with my own photorealistic scenery and airport scenery. I hope that's useful to you, and thanks again for watching on the glide slope. Funny.